for the City of Wheat Ridge, Colorado for October 11, 2021. If you would please stand as you are able and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk please call the roll of the members?
Janice Hoppy.
Present.
Judy Hutchinson.
Present.
Zachary Urban.
Present.
Rachel Holteen.
Present.
Amanda Weaver.
Here.
Corey Stites.
Here.
Leah Dozman.
Here.
Valerie Nosler-Beck.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, we have all 8 members present and a quorum.
Thank you very much. Councilors, before you, you have City Council minutes for September 13 and September 27, 2021. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Not, we'll let the minutes stand as presented, with thanks to our clerk. Without exception, we will approve the agenda as posted. We will. Okay, thank you. And we have a proclamation tonight. I'm going to go to the podium. We have a proclamation tonight about National Pedestrian Safety Month in October, and unfortunately I'm sad to say that we had a couple of pedestrian auto vehicle accidents today, and I hope that everyone is doing well in those accidents, and that we hopefully can forestall that anymore in the future. And I have some people I'd like to invite to the podium to accept this proclamation. Mark De La Torre with the Wheat Ridge Active Transportation Advisory Team. And also with us from Wilmore Davis, we have Coco and Talia Beck. If you all would like to come up here. And we have Uriah and Aria Cavoto and their parent, Mandy Cavoto. So I want to thank you guys. You guys walk to school, and you always want to be safe walking to school. So come on over here. We're going to have some photo ops, and that's good right there. Thank you guys for joining us. And I think the television camera is right up there, that little one on the wall. So that's where we're being broadcast from, I think. So this is a proclamation in support of National Pedestrian Safety Month on October 11, 2021. Whereas the City of Wheat Ridge strives to be a comfortable and safe place to walk and ride a bike for people of all ages and abilities. And whereas children walk along our corridors, through our neighborhoods, and cross streets on their way to Wheat Ridge schools. And whereas the CDC states that physical activity, such as walking, can help improve overall health and lower the risk of heart disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes, depression, and some cancers. And whereas the benefits of walking extend beyond personal and physical to environmental benefits that can lead to healthier, quieter, cleaner, and safer streets. Walking can also improve local economies and enhance social and community engagement, leading to a more vibrant, resilient, and livable spaces. And whereas in 2019, a pedestrian was killed in America on average every 85 minutes in a traffic crash, and pedestrian deaths accounted for 17% of all traffic fatalities nationally. And whereas people of color, children walking to and from school, people with disabilities, and people over the age of 65 are at greater risk of serious injury or death while walking than the population as a whole. And whereas to improve the safety for pedestrians and bicyclists who have the right to arrive safely at their destinations, drivers of vehicles must stay alert and be cautious while traveling on our streets. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Bud Starker, Mayor of the City of Wheat Ridge, and the City Council formally designate the month of October 2021 as National Pedestrian Safety Month. In witness thereof, on this 11th day of October, Bud Starker, Mayor. I want to present this to Mr. De La Torre, and you have a few words for us.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. Just wanted to thank everyone here tonight, community of Wheat Ridge, for prioritizing pedestrian safety in our community. I'm here representing City of Wheat Ridge as a community member, as well as the Active Transportation Advisory Team. We're an advocacy group that focuses on the promotion of safe, equitable, multimodal connectivity and access for all ages and abilities throughout Wheat Ridge. So really, really appreciate what y'all are doing tonight. Thank you again for your time.
I want to shake all your guys' hands for coming up here. Thank you for coming and helping us to make our roads safe. So, thanks so much. Thanks for coming up. Thank you. We are at our public's right to speak. Members of the public may speak on any matter not on the agenda for a maximum of 3 minutes under the public's right to speak. When I call your name, if you'd please make your way to the podium. And please give us your first name and your last name. If you would please spell your last name and give us your address for the record. When you start speaking, our clerk will signal the lights to begin. You have 3 minutes. The green light will appear when the speaker commences. The green light will flash when the speaker has 30 seconds remaining. The yellow light will appear at 15 seconds. And when the red light comes on, your time has expired. And if you would please close your comments. So our first speaker tonight is Edward Flegler.
Edward Flegler, F as in Frank, L-E-E-G-L-E-R. And I live at 3812 Taft Court. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. It's nice to be back here to speak again. I'm here to talk further about the health and wellness of Wheat Ridge, and to request specifically that there be a strategic pause with the recent announcement that Intermountain Healthcare and SCL Health are going to merge. This is a momentous event in the history of this lovely community. Coming from both a clinical and a business career as a physician medical administrator, this notification is important to understand that nothing should transpire until the notification is either moved forward by SCL and Intermountain Healthcare, or they decide to go their separate ways. Lutheran Hospital is not moving to Clear Creek tomorrow. It's not moving tomorrow. And it is important for all of the stakeholders to work in collaboration and to have a clear understanding that the merger is of critical importance for the health and well-being of the residents of Wheat Ridge. I know Intermountain Healthcare. I also had some care through SCL Health. And I will say, Intermountain is not only a recognized leader if not the leader for model for ambulatory healthcare delivery for our country, but it also has a global presence. This is critically important in terms of improving high-quality primary care. What do I mean by that? We just saw some kids who were so cute standing up here. As we recognize, kids fall down. Kids need stitches. I've talked to my neighbors. They've had to travel 20 miles to get x-rays or to get pediatric services that should be available in our community. As well, I was an internist geriatrician, part of the University of Pennsylvania healthcare system on the East Coast, a high-performing center of excellence. We need not only internal medicine and family practice clinical services, but we also need the opportunity for women's health. And I'd be happy to talk to anyone about what that means, as well as geriatrics. It's important to take this pause and to think about the health and well-being of the community, but also to think what this will do as an economic driver for this region if Intermountain Healthcare comes to Wheat Ridge. Thank you for listening to my comments.
Thank you. That's the only one I have signed up tonight to speak under public's right to speak, but if you did not get a chance to sign up, you may come to the podium now if you're in our City Hall, and I'll ask whether we have anyone online that has raised their hands. If you're online and would like to speak under this public's right to speak, you may do so now by raising your hand or speaking up, and I'll see if we have anyone. And it doesn't look like we have anyone online, and we have no one here else in the hall, so we will close our public's right to speak, and we will move to agenda item number 1. Ms. Hutchinson, or Councilor Hutchinson, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mayor. This is a motion to approve the annual police body-worn camera system contract payment to Axon Enterprise Incorporated in the amount of $86,880. Issue.
Please.
In 2019, the City of Wheat Ridge entered into a contract with Axon Enterprise Incorporated for body-worn camera equipment and data storage. The contract includes the purchase of cameras, licenses, data storage, and auto-tagging ability. These services ensure that the Wheat Ridge Police Department is operating within the standards set forth by Colorado Senate Bill 20-2117. Yeah. Payment in the amount of $86,880 is due for 2021.
Thank you. This is our consent agenda item. A motion is in order. Councilor Hutchinson.
I move to approve the annual police body-worn camera contract payment to Axon Enterprise Incorporated in the amount of $86,880.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Mr. Stites. Will the clerk please poll the council? Thank you. We will go to agenda item number 2. Councilor Dozeman.
Thank you. Council Bill number 18-2021, an ordinance amending Chapter 11 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws by the addition of a new article entitled Hotel Licenses, and in connection therewith, adding reference to extended stay lodging in Chapter 26, Use Schedules. At issue within the city of Wheat Ridge, there are presently 9 hotels with a total of approximately 972 rooms. While these 9 hotels represent less than 0.05% of the total number of households and businesses in the city, the calls for service from the city's police department to these establishments constitute approximately 10% of the total police calls. This ordinance will create a licensing program for hotels and require minimal amenities to provide safe and healthy environments for persons relying upon short-term and extended stay housing in Wheat Ridge.
Thank you. This is an ordinance on first reading to set the date, time, and location for a public hearing. A motion is in order. Councilor Dozman.
Sorry, hold on just a sec. I move to approve Council Bill number 18-2021, an ordinance amending Chapter 11 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws by addition of a new article, what is it, 25? 14, entitled Hotel Licenses, in connection therewith adding reference to extended stay lodging in Chapter 26, use schedules on first reading, order it published, public hearing set for Monday, October 25th, 2021, at 7 p.m. as a virtual meeting in a city council chambers, if allowed to meet in person on that date per COVID-19 restrictions, and that it takes effect 15 days after final publication.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Mr. Urban. Would the clerk please poll the council? It's the mask.
Mr. Mayor, the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. We will move to agenda item number 3. Councilor Hoppe, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolution number 50-2021, a resolution adopting the city budget and appropriating sums of money to the various funds and spending agencies for the city of Wheat Ridge, Colorado for the 2022 budget year.
Thank you. This is a public hearing, will be a resolution of the council. It is not quasi-judicial. I'm going to open the public hearing. And Goff, it looks like you're handing out some paperwork for a present.
Glitch in the back, so your screens are not working.
Oh, okay.
But they are for the public.
All right.
So we'll give you a copy.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Yeah, back old school. Paper tester.
Pretty good school, that.
Sounds like a workers' comp plan. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to take my mask off here real quick so you can hear me. Thank you, Mayor and Council. We are here this evening to present the 2022 budget to City Council for approval. It's our official public hearing this evening. We had a fairly extensive study session a couple of weeks ago on September 20th, so we're going to keep this fairly brief this evening. We'll obviously are here for any questions that you may have. So to get going, first of all, I want to kind of talk about what we expect this year and by the end of this year, because that determines what we can budget for next year, of course. So this chart shows three different columns. The far right two columns, the 2021 original budget was what was originally adopted by City Council in October of 2020. And the far right column is the 2021 estimated budget. That's what we estimate we're going to end up on December 31st of this year. So you can see the beginning fund balance is about the same. It's a little bit less than we originally budgeted. But revenues, we originally budgeted just over 36 million. We're projecting to bring in just over 45 million by the end of this year. Total available funds then would be 57 million instead of 49, which was budgeted. Expenditures, we are projecting to spend a little bit more than we budgeted, about $1 million, just a little bit over $1 million. And if council remembers, we did bring a budget adjustment to City Council in June of this year, and council did approve $1 million, just over 1.1 million in expenditures, which were on our wish list of items that we were not able to get into the budget originally because of our concerns with COVID. So the good news is our ending fund balance was only projected at 10 million, just a little over 10 million, but as you can see, we're projecting $7 million more than we thought. We were very conservative originally when we adopted the 2021 budget because of COVID, but we did much better in Wheat Ridge than expected. and which is very good news. We have a lot of ending fund balance that is $7 million higher than expected, and the unrestricted ending fund balance is also about $7 million more than we expected. So these funds are carried over to next year's budget and helps us catch up on many issues that we weren't able to budget in '21. So looking at the total budget for the city, this includes our general funds, our capital improvement program fund, Wheat Ridge renewal, bond funds, the 2E bond fund, and all the special revenue funds that the city has. You can see the general fund is our largest budget of $82 million. The general fund is 54% of that. And you can see, though, in 2022, we are proposing a fairly large CIP budget at 26%, and both the 2E bond fund and the renewal Wheat Ridge bond project fund at 12% total are also capital improvements to the city. So investing in a lot of capital improvements in 2022. This is the $82 million. This is a 38% increase over this year's adopted budget. That may seem pretty high, but if you remember, the 2021 budget was very limited due to COVID. And we cut a lot of services and expenses in 21 because of that. But the 2022 budget includes significant funding for capital investment, and it really fully restores most services to normal levels across all departments in the city. And then also another reason for this increase in the total budget is this budget for next year does include a new fund, the Renewal Wheat Ridge Bond Fund. We've presented to City Council in the past. Renewal Wheat Ridge, our city's Urban Renewal Authority, is going to be issuing bonds here in November, approximately $40 million. And the 2022 general fund budget, or city's budget, will include about $5.9 million of that for projects, which we'll talk about here in a bit. And the CIP budget next year is about $7 million higher than it is this year. We are able to double the amount that we're putting in street preventative maintenance projects, and the Wadsworth improvement project is also fully budgeted in 2022. Now, going down a little bit further into the general fund specifically, as I mentioned, that was 52% or 54% of the total budget. We're proposing a $48 million general fund budget of revenues. And as we mentioned many times, I think you know this by heart now, but sales tax and use tax are our largest revenue sources in the city. As you can see here, 59% comes from sales tax, use tax is 12%. Property tax, which some people still don't realize, is one of our lower revenue sources at 3% of our total general fund budget. So we received just over $1 million, 1.2 million, I believe, in revenues from property tax. So we're projecting a 4.8% increase in general fund revenues over this year's end, at the end of this year. And it's also a 26.4% increase of what we originally budgeted in 2021. So again, we were very conservative in 2021. We just weren't sure what was going to happen with our local economy because of COVID. So again, sales tax, our largest revenue source. We're conservatively projecting a 4.8% increase next year in 2022 over this year's budget, but it's a 14.2% compared to what we originally budgeted. To date, this year, I believe through August, sales tax has increased about 13% over the same period last year. But we're being a little bit more conservative. By the end of this year, we're projecting that the sales tax is going to be about 8% higher than we saw last year. So with that, with the beginning fund balance that we're projecting in the general fund of $17 million, we have total available funds of $65 million in the general fund in 2022. And we're also in the service piece of the pie here, 7%. That's where our parks and recreation fees revenue is. And these fees really took the biggest hit. This revenue source took the biggest hit during the pandemic. But we are budgeting to come back at full strength in 2022 for our parks and rec programs and services, and the revenues and the fees that they generate. So now looking at general fund expenditures, we are proposing $44 million of expenditures in the general fund, and it's divvied up by different departments. As you see in this pie chart here, the police department is our largest budget in the general fund. That's primarily because they have the most employees. It's, I think, over 90% of their budget is to pay for employees. So 30% of this $44 million goes to the police department. Parks and Recreation, which does include the operation of the recreation center, is the second largest expense at 17%. Central charges is 12%. That's primarily our workers' compensation, property liability, our medical, dental, life insurance, uninsured losses, postage, utilities, janitorial, security guards, and COVID-19 response. So there's a lot of money, a lot of big ticket items in there that make more sense to budget centrally like that. Administrative services is 11%. That's our internal services of finance and HR and IT and purchasing and such. Is 11%. General government is 9%. That includes the mayor and city council, city clerk, city treasurer, city manager, economic development, and our city attorney. And then community development is also 9%. And municipal courts, 3%. I believe our judge is here. Doesn't mean you're not important. You're the smallest piece of the pie, but thank you very much for keeping your budget low. So that's the general fund. Moving on to our second largest piece of that pie of the total budget is our capital improvement program budget, our CIP budget. We are projecting with the beginning fund balance and then the projecting revenues of just over $20 million, we should have $24 million of available funds for CIP, proposing expenditures of just under $22 million. That will leave about $2.4 million at the end of next year. Fortunately, due to our strong economy, as I mentioned, and our budget reserves, we were able to transfer more than twice the amount of general fund dollars that we typically do to CIP in 2022, which will help us catch up under critical infrastructure projects. All but $1 million of the projected use tax from the Lutheran project is being transferred to the CIP budget next year. So those are one-time revenues that we're receiving on this project, and instead of putting those into our ongoing operating budget, we are proposing to put those in the capital budget for one-time projects. So some of the major projects, these aren't all the projects in the capital budget, but these are just the major ones we're proposing for 2022. Again, the Wadsworth Improvement Project, which our groundbreaking is tomorrow, is budgeted at $15.6 million for next year. There will be additional funding in 2023 also. As I mentioned earlier, our preventative street maintenance program, this is an annual program for crack seal and slurry seal and asphalt of roads in the city to keep them drivable. And this is about double of what we've done in the past several years. So $3 million will go a little bit further, of course. The $1.2 million for municipal parking lot, that is for the recreation center parking lot. That building, parking lot, and building are over 20 years old now, and was built on very, very poor soil to begin with. So we're lucky it's made it 20 years, I think. We've been patching it for a long time, but it's in need of a new parking lot. Some bridge maintenance, which is exciting, $500,000. We haven't been able to put any money towards bridge maintenance in a long time. This is for the bridge on 44th. Do you remember? Is it 44th? Steve Wynn, our engineering manager, is in the back. This will be the bridge on 44th over Clear Creek Crossing. We have several bridge projects that we have in the out years. Some improvements, City Hall facility improvements, just under $250,000. Drainage improvements across the city, $200,000. Parks and forestry facility improvements of $175,000. Striping maintenance to keep up on our bike lanes and anywhere we need to update some striping for safety on our roads, $150,000. This is something that we've been budgeting more and more every year to keep up on those different lane markings. Improvements to the recreation center facility, $150,000. $100,000 to our neighborhood traffic management program, which is becoming more and more popular. We typically budget at $30,000 a year in this budget, so we're proposing to start budgeting at $100,000. And then some traffic signal improvements across the city of $100,000. And as I mentioned earlier, we are proposing to create a new fund in the budget next year. It would be the Wheat Ridge Renewal Bond Fund. They will be issuing bonds here this November, we hope, and raising close to $40 million for numerous projects in the I-70 Kipling Urban Renewal area. And Renewal Wheat Ridge, with those funds, will use some of those funds directly to pay off, first of all, to pay off a Clear Creek Crossing loan that they have. It's just about $6 million for the Clear Creek Crossing project. They'll be able to get a much better interest rate through these bonds than they currently have with that bank loan. And then some improvements to the Gold's Marketplace. Renewal Wheat Ridge will make those payments directly. But then Renewal Wheat Ridge will transfer funds from their budget to the city's budget into this fund on an annual basis for projects as we move along. And in 2022, we're projecting about $5.9 million in projects that the city will manage. And these are projects and activities in 3 different areas: the Applewood area, the Kipling corridor, and then the Wheat Ridge Ward Station area. For 2022, we have $750,000 proposed for design for improvements to the I-70 and 32nd Avenue interchange and Youngfield corridor. We do have about $5 million set aside for the actual construction in those improvements once the design's done. $1 million to reconstruct the interchange or the intersection at 38th and Kipling, to add double left turn lanes to 38th Avenue approaches and make pedestrian safety enhancements. That area of the city has been seeing more traffic. There's more development, and there is a middle school, obviously, in that area, and a lot of kids use that intersection to get across town. So we need to make some improvements there. And then $4.1 million is set aside to complete street and intersection improvements at the Wheat Ridge Ward Station area. Primarily improvements to 52nd Avenue, Ridge Road, Tabor Road, and the intersection of 52nd and Ward. And those are all part of, again, the Wheat Ridge Ward Station redevelopment that's happening as we speak. The open space funds, we're projecting just about $3.8 million in revenue. With the current beginning fund balance, that will provide about $6.7 million available funds for open space projects. Proposing expenditures of about $5.4 million. That will leave about $1.4 million at the end of next year. The major projects that we have in the budget for next year are the green improvements to the community space on 38th Avenue. That's $3.8 million. Parks maintenance projects of $525,000. That is primarily, that's going to be grant supported, a GOCO Community Impact Grant. And the project will be for post-tension concrete tennis courts at Panorama Park, which has been needed for quite some time to improve those tennis courts. If the grant's not awarded, that project will have to be delayed. $400,000 for trail maintenance and repair, and that's associated with Jefferson County Open Space Trails Partnership Grant for the Clear Creek Trail improvements, and $50,000 for an outdoor fitness court. That will be at a fitness court at Panorama Park. The city received a grant from the National Fitness Campaign and are looking for additional sponsorships to help pay for the outdoor fitness court, or we may be able to use American Rescue Plan dollars to help complete that project. Again, those are just some of the major projects. There is additional funding also in this fund, primarily for just over $500,000 for 9 parks maintenance employees is also included in this budget. Then our proposed conservation trust fund, with the available beginning fund balance next year, and the revenues we're projecting of just over $350,000, we should have $731,000 available funds. Proposing to spend just about $367,000. It'll leave about $364,000 at the end of the year. The 2 major projects out of this budget are recreation facility maintenance projects. As I mentioned earlier, the recreation facility is is 20 years old, and there is more and more repairs that are needed to keep that center in the condition it is, which is great. And then some major playground improvements at the Abelbacher Park, this for $100,000. And then staffing and benefits. Again, we went in much more greater detail on this in the study session 2 weeks ago, but we are proposing an increase of 8.37 FTEs, full-time equivalent positions for the 2022 budget. We are, to stay competitive, we did a market analysis, which we try to do every other year. We did stall that during the pandemic in 2020, but we were able to get that done this year. It did indicate that we need to make market adjustments to every pay grade. So we do have money in the budget to do that. As promised with our police department, we were behind based on a competitive nature with our neighboring communities. We were behind on our pension contribution to our sworn employees in the police department. So for the last 2 years, we've increased the city's contribution by 0.5%. This will be the third year to get them up to their 11%? 11.5%? 11.5%. This will get them up to 11.5% city contribution to the sworn employees' pension, which is competitive with our neighboring communities. Then our medical benefits, we've been very fortunate. Last year we actually had a decrease in premiums for our medical, and we do have about a 3% increase for 2022. We are sharing that increase. The city will cover half of that, and the employee will cover half of that. And as I promised, brief. So that's it. But I have most of staff here this evening or online on Zoom, so we'd be happy to take any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Goff. Before we go to questions from council, I'd like to open it up for questions from the public. And we have one person signed up to speak on my list, Mary Pike. If you'd like to come forward and speak now, and if you'd once again give us your first name and last name, and spell your last name and give us an address, and continue.
Hi, my name is Mary Pike, P-I-K-E, and I work at Jefferson Center, and the address is 9595 West 49th Avenue in Wheat Ridge. Good evening, and thank you to the mayor and the council. I am working with Jefferson Center, where I'm the manager of co-responder programs. Jefferson Center is the nonprofit behavioral health center that serves Jefferson, Gilpin, and Clear Creek counties, and has for over 60 years. One of the areas where Jefferson Center excels is collaborating with partners to bring much-needed services to the community. I'm here tonight to recommend approval of the line item of co-responder fees in the police budget for professional services. We have been partnering with area law enforcement on co-responder programs for 7 years. When we started, we had 1 police agency and 2 co-responders. We have now expanded to working with 6 law enforcement agencies with a total of 12 co-responder positions within the county. In November 2019, Wheat Ridge Police Department, in partnership with the Sheriff's Office and the Golden Police Department, used grant funding to bring a part-time co-responder to Wheat Ridge to help determine the need for such a position. The response from the police department, as well as the community, has been overwhelmingly positive. The purpose of a co-responder program is to have a master's level clinician work alongside the police in order to take some of the burden off of officers in dealing with vulnerable members of the community. This allows police officers more time to return to their duties of protecting and serving the community. Over the years, the police have been tasked with handling many issues which can be more effectively managed by a co-responder. The co-responder can respond on scene with an officer to help de-escalate someone in crisis, help the citizen get connected to the right resources, or provide support and education to their families. Co-responders can also get after-the-fact referrals from officers and outreach the citizen to determine their needs, and again, help them get connected to the right resources. It has been shown time and again that if people get the support they need and get engaged in the right services for them, their calls to 911 decrease or stop. The need is great for this program in Wheat Ridge. From November 2019, when the program started, through the end of 2020, this part-time co-responder received 323 referrals from police officers. This is over 300 citizens of Wheat Ridge that could potentially be helped by a co-responder instead of them continuing to call police when they are in crisis. The number of referrals for this year through the end of September are 176 and is on pace to have an equal number of referrals as last year. The fact that this is all being handled by one part-time clinician shows what a need there is in this community. Having a full-time co-responder embedded in the department will allow for a greater integration into the department, which will increase the efficiency and effectiveness of the program. I urge you to approve the line item of co-responder fees in the police budget for professional services. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no one else signed up to speak under agenda item number 3, but if you have not signed up here, you may speak at the podium now, and I'll ask if we have anyone in the Zoom format that has raised their hand or would like to speak, because we're taking.
I see no one, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. And I don't see anybody coming, so we will close our public strike to speak on this agenda item number 3, and I will open the floor up to questions from council. Councilor Hoppy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. City Manager Goff, I had asked this question last week at a study session, and Ken Johnstone answered it for me, but I just wanted to clarify. My question was that, do we have like a comprehensive overview of all of our facilities? We have some things in the budget about facility repairs to a couple of our facilities. Do we have a comprehensive idea of what is needed in all of our facilities? And from what I remember Mr. Johnstone saying is that if to get a new one, an updated one, if we don't have one, could potentially cost some money. It wouldn't be something that we'd be able to handle through staff. Is that true?
Yeah, good question, council member. And yeah, we did discuss this during the budget study session too a little bit. This came up, and we don't have a comprehensive, no. That's the short answer. We do have kind of bits and pieces. I think the rec center has a plan. We tried to do as well as we could with the staff we have, and fortunately, in the last year, we've changed the position in the Parks and Rec department to a facility manager position. Unfortunately, that position was vacant for the last several months. We just filled that. This new gentleman starts in a couple weeks, I believe, and so we're hoping that with that person on board, we can have somebody to manage a better comprehensive facilities plan, but we also need to do one. And I think, yeah, we would love to be able to have a professional come in and work with this individual and do an assessment of all of our facilities across the whole city. And I don't know exactly what that cost would be right now. We haven't looked into that. The good news is, which I think I mentioned during the budget study session, we over budgeted for our property liability insurance for next year, because we were advised by our insurance carrier that we were probably going to see a 50% increase. And we didn't get our actual quote until after the budget was presented to you all, and it actually didn't come in that high. So we have about $100,000 extra in the central charges budget that we could put towards something like this, and I think that would be plenty. I don't think it would be that much, but so you wouldn't have to amend the budget necessarily, but if that's something you want us to do, we would take direction on that from you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Additional discussion, Councilor Hoppy? I mean, not Hoppy, we did Hoppy, Councilor Holteen, pardon me.
Thank you. There's a lot of us with H last
A lot of
names on
Hs.
this council, so thank you. I have a question regarding the open space fund. So in here, one of the major projects called out is $3.8 million for the green. And I just want to, I guess, seek a little clarification. So that is a process that is undergoing, and it sounds like it's got somewhat of a range of ultimate costs for that. So I'm just, I guess, clarifying and then maybe seeking a little additional information. As that rolls out and the scope of that project becomes more clarified both through community input and council input, are we just sort of setting aside that those are funds that would be available for that? I just want to clarify we're not actually approving the funds for that project at this time.
Correct, and I'll let Karen interject too if she'd like, but I'll start and give a little bit of history on that. So this project came up in 2019 from three, let's see, is it three or I think all three, or trying to think if one of you is still on the council or not. I know at least two previous council members asked for this to come to a study session. We did that in 2019. There was consensus to move forward with looking at this project. At that point, we were able to set aside $900,000 from the general fund to put towards. It wasn't a dollar amount that was associated with any cost for construction because we had no idea what it was going to be at that point. We hadn't had any design or any public outreach or input. So we carried that $900,000 over for a couple of years because the project it's in cooperation with the school district. It's taken quite some time to get moving. We stalled it during the pandemic because we couldn't do any public outreach. We did receive direction from City Council to proceed with 30% design, and we have that completed. We're in the middle of community gathering community input. We had a public meeting, and we're asking for public input through October 15th on What's Up Wheat Ridge. I think we've received quite a bit, honestly. So the $3.8 million that's in the budget for 2022 is based on an estimate that was given to us from the 30% design work. And it's actually the low number. There's a range. There's two options that the designer provided that we're presenting to the community for feedback. And that's the lower amount, 3.8, was enough to do option one, I believe. So that 3.8 comes from several different sources also. So the 900,000 I mentioned before is the only general fund dollars that's part of that 3.8 million. And that's not even coming from the 2022 budget. That was carried over since 2019. Open space would contribute 1.2 million towards it. And the two new multifamily projects, the West End 38 at Upham and 38, and the Edison at the Wheat Ridge Corners project, both paid fees in lieu of parkland dedication of about $900,000 total. So those fees are in the open space budget, and those would be part of the 3.8 million. The school district portion for the parking lot reconfiguration is $800,000, so they would contribute $800,000 towards the 3.8. And we're hoping to eventually sell a little parcel of property that used to be the town center park by the post office, and we have no idea really what we could get for that, but a couple $100,000. I think we just estimated $100,000. The sale of that property could be put towards this too. So that's what makes up the 3.8.
Great, thank you. And then my other question about that in terms of timing with the budget, I seem to remember from the community presentation a few weeks ago when asked about the timeline for the green project, I seem to remember that they were talking about 2023 and not 2022. So can you clarify that?
Yeah, it's really contingent on what the school district will allow based on their schedule. So we honestly they've been really busy on a lot of their bond projects that they're working on and improving their schools. So we need to get them re-engaged to see what it's going to work on their schedule. But at this point, we're only at 30% design. If we move forward, we're still going to have to do final design. It's going to take a while. And so we're probably estimating it probably wouldn't happen until 2023 because of that final design and looking for that construction window that's going to work for the school.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Nosler-Beck.
Thanks, Mayor. I think this might be a question for Steve, but Patrick, when you were going through the 44th Avenue Bridge, I thought I heard you say it was Clear Creek Crossing, but it might have been that it was a Clear Creek Bridge. I just wanted to confirm, because there's a bridge at 44th right by Anderson Park that I thought I had saw in the budget.
It should be the bridge on 44th Avenue at Clear Creek. It's right by Anderson Park.
Okay, that's the one that I was hoping it was. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah,
Thanks.
that bill was delayed for 2 years because of COVID, so we'd like to pick up where we left off.
I can't wait.
Thank you. Additional questions? Mr. Stites?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just I know this is kind of an off-the-wall question, I guess, because it's not really in the budget. We don't have any money budgeted for the housing authority this year, correct?
We don't. We typically don't.
Okay. I know we have the affordable housing discussion coming up in November, I believe, which is obviously after the budgeting season. Will we, depending on the product of that discussion, would we be able to find some money in the budget to either go to the housing authority this year, or is that something we can maybe look at them? I know they're not meeting right now because they don't have any money, but getting them starting to meet to start looking at funding for future, or looking at grants, things like that?
Yeah, I think we're fortunate that we do have, we have more revenue sources than we ever have, and different pots of money, if you will. I think it would be better to have a larger discussion about what you think you'd want the housing authority to do. We are potentially going to be contributing quite a bit of our money to our regional housing authority and the county for some housing projects where they have the capacity to do more of the projects, not our housing authority. So I would recommend that we have a very strategic discussion about what you want our local housing authority to do and how much money they would need with that.
Thank you. Additional questions? Mr. Urban?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Along the discussion of the green, I think that given the fact that we have that $900,000 available to get us through 2022, I would be more in favor of keeping that entire project in consideration next year with the new council, and that would make the overall budget a lot more palatable for me.
Additional discussion? Before I close the public hearing? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing, and Councilor Hoppe, a motion is in order.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve Resolution Number 50-2021, a resolution adopting the city budget and appropriating sums of money to the various funds and spending agencies for the city of Wheat Ridge, Colorado for the 2022 budget with the following amendment: to direct staff to conduct a citywide municipal facilities assessment utilizing funds from the central charges account that was initially budgeted for the 2022 property casualty insurance and has since been determined as over budgeted.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. That was Ms. Hoppe, or I mean, Ms. Hulteen? Okay. Okay. Is there discussion on the motion? Councilor Hulteen?
Thank you. So I'm excited to see that our neighborhood traffic management program fund allocation has increased significantly. And I think especially today with the heaviness of 2 pedestrian crashes, it seems it's really just been on my mind quite a bit. Councilor Stites and I previously have asked and have put on the study session a lengthy waiting list of topics to look at that program again and revise and revamp it. And my understanding is that our staffing capacity right now is not does not support that coming forward in the short term, hopefully in the medium term. Meanwhile, I would like to propose that we earmark some of those funds to be a little bit more strategic than just the standard wait for neighbors to get organized, complain, the city respond, and then hopefully install a solution. So I would like to propose that we earmark $25,000 of the $100,000 specifically for locations within a half a mile of a Wheat Ridge school.
Second.
Okay, is that an amendment coming forward then?
Yes.
So what's that amendment?
I'd like to amend the budget to earmark $25,000 of the neighborhood traffic management program specifically for locations within a half a mile of Wheat Ridge schools.
It's really not an amendment to the budget. It's an amendment to the motion.
It's an amendment
Just to be clear,
motion.
it's not changing the budget
Oh,
amount.
not changing the budget, but it's an amendment to the motion, okay? And so we have an amendment by Ms. Hulteen and a second by Mr. Stites. Okay, may we have discussion on the motion, on the amendment? Is there discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, will the clerk please poll the council on the amendment?
Mr. Mayor, the amendment has passed unanimously.
Okay, good. Then we will go back to our discussion on the main motion. Is there additional discussion on the main motion?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Urban.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to make an amendment to the budget to remove $3.1 million from the green project under the open space fund, to leave the $900,000 available for that project in the budget year 2022.
Second.
There's an amendment and a second, and please raise your hand with the second. Ms. Dozman, is there discussion on the amendment? Councilor Nosterbeck and then Councilor Hulteen.
Can I just have you repeat that again? I couldn't hear.
Sorry, a reduction in the green project fund from 3.8 million to 3.1 million, leaving the $900,000 in that project fund to do whatever it needs to be done next year, but holding off on the larger amount until 2023.
3.8 to 3.1?
Oh, sorry.
You want to leave 900,000?
Sorry, yeah,
Okay.
2.9. Sorry. 3.8 to 2.9, sorry.
Okay. Councilor Hulteen?
Thank you. I have a question. So if this amendment moves forward, what happens with those funds? Does Parks and Rec come up with other priorities, or do they just carry them forward?
Well, the 900,000 that I mentioned earlier, that's from fees in lieu of park dedication. You know, I think with discussions with Karen and the Parks Department, we would like to use those in this area where those two apartments are. So this was kind of the project that we were earmarking those funds for. So those, if we don't use them, I don't think we would identify something else unless directed by council. We would just hold on to them until the green, if it moves forward. The school portion, you know, we don't have that. We're showing it as a revenue in the open space budget, but if we don't get it, we don't get it. We don't have the 800,000. The 1.2 from the open space, that will just stay in the open space fund balance for projects that Karen might need, or we'll reserve it for the green if we want to move forward. If we're not going to move forward with the green, I think we would love a discussion on that, because we are continuing to work on it. We're getting feedback from the community. So if council wants to kill the project, I think we'd just rather kill it and stop working on it.
Councilor Hoppe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I disagree with this amendment because if we have this and we need to carry over some of it, if we can do some of the work in 2022 and need to carry some of it over to 2023, then that's something we can do on the 2023 budget discussion. Also, the fees in lieu of from the West End 38th and the Edison apartments, that is exactly the space that they would be using park space at. The $800,000 from the schools, if we don't do that parking lot, then they may eventually end up doing the parking lot, and we may end up losing our opportunity to be able to create a space that works efficiently for both the school and our community. In the 2018 citizen survey, in the 2021 citizen survey, citizens identified that they wanted us to move forward on the Main Street vision of 38th Avenue. This is a direct piece of doing that. In the East Wheat Ridge Let's Talk, in the Lepa Manor Let's Talk, those citizens asked for us to move forward for this. So our citizens are asking us to move forward with this. We've moved forward with a 30% design, and we're at the spot where now we need to start stepping forward again. So deleting it from this budget is sending our citizens the message that, well, we've listened, but we're not going to really take it very seriously. And it also gives us the opportunity, could ruin the opportunity for us to be able to do this project while the school is looking to do their project. And we may need to spend some of that monies before 2023. So I absolutely will not be voting yes for this. And I've heard so many citizens in District 1 ask for this to get done.
Additional discussion on the amendment.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Urban.
I would suggest that the amendment to allow $900,000 to go forward on this project would not kill the project, it would bring it forward. I think that the remaining budget that is being cobbled together really hasn't been nailed down, that the school hasn't been identified as far as the funds and whatnot. So a lot of it is still up in the air, and I think that that money is still available. We're not getting rid of it. I would have a concern about us identifying that a particular park project must be within a certain location of a development fee, because that somewhat concerns me, but I just think that we can hold off. I don't think that it's going to kill the project or hurt it in any way if it goes forward. I think that we can do that with the $900,000 that we already have available. So I would encourage you to vote yes.
Additional discussion on the amendment. Councilor Dozman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Mr. Urban's sentiments on this project. The $900,000 is still allocated towards it. We could move forward with the design and a discussion since we're receiving public input. And those funds would still be available if we want to allocate it at a later point in time once we've nailed down whether Jeffco is going to be giving us additional money and what our specific design would look like. And so I'm in support of this amendment. Thank you.
Councilor Hoppy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to remind everybody that all of these monies that we're talking about are monies that have to be spent on Parks and Rec, so either on a park or in a Parks and Rec program, aside from the $800,000 that we'd be getting from Jeffco Schools, which is what's already been discussed with the schools, is $800,000. That's why it's part of the budget. So it's not a mystery what we're going to get from them. And then what is a mystery is we don't know exactly how much the town center park will sell for. And so there is a guesstimate of $100,000 for that. And, but again, that money also has to go back into Parks and Rec or Parks and Rec programming. So this money doesn't necessarily, it doesn't necessarily like go into streets or street lights or something like that. It has to stay in this budget.
Additional discussion on the amendment. Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council on the amendment?
Mr. Mayor, there are 4 votes aye and 4 votes nay. Would you care to break the tie? The motion fails by a vote of 5 to 4.
Okay, we will move back to the original motion. Is there more discussion on the original motion?
And just to clarify that, it won't change it, but the mayor can't break a tie for a budget matter. So
okay.
It fails on a tie instead of a mayor's vote.
Okay, thank you. Additional discussion on the main motion. Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
Mr. Mayor, the main motion has passed unanimously.
Thank you. We will move to agenda item number 4. Councilor Urban, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolution number 51-2021, a resolution levying general fund property taxes for the year 2021 to help defray the costs of government for the city of Wheat Ridge, Colorado for the 2020 budget year, 2022 budget year. Doesn't really matter.
Okay. This will be a resolution of the council that is not quasi-judicial. Mr. Goff, do we have a staff presentation on this item?
We're fighting over it. We're so excited. Allie, you want it?
Sure, real quickly. I think this council is well aware of this. We just received our estimate of the real property valuation in Wheat Ridge. It's an initial estimate we get in August, and as the governing body, you are obligated to certify our mill levy, which of course doesn't change. That would require a vote of the people. So it's the 1.830 mills. We expect that to raise approximately $1.2 million. That's based on this year's valuation to help defray the cost of government in 2022. This tonight allows us to certify that and send that into the state, which is our legal obligation. We will later in the year, next month, actually November, get an updated estimate. So
that's what we're here to ask for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go to questions of council, I'll open this up to questions from the public. I don't believe I have anyone signed up to speak on this one. I do not. But if there's anyone here in the hall who would like to speak on this agenda item number 4, you may do so now. And we will check and see if we have anyone online who has raised their hands or indicated that they would like to speak on this also.
I see no one online, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I don't see anyone else here in the hall, so we will close our public's right to speak on this item, and I will open it up for questions from council. Seeing none, Mr. Urban, a motion is in order.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve resolution number 51-2021, a resolution levying general fund property taxes for the year 2021 to help defray the cost of government for the city of Wheat Ridge, Colorado for the 2022 budget year.
Second.
There is a motion and a second by Mr. Stites. Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council? Thank you. That brings us to agenda item number 5. Mr. Stites, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion to approve a memorandum of understanding and data sharing agreement between the City of Wheat Ridge, Colorado and the Housing Connector. At issue, the City of Wheat Ridge Homeless Navigation Program is dedicated to the placement of unhoused individuals as part of the City Council priority to develop solutions and work with partners to address homelessness. Housing Connector is a nonprofit partnering with properties and case managers to reduce barriers and increase access to housing for individuals experiencing homelessness. Partnering with Housing Connector would allow the City of Wheat Ridge access to housing units that could be used to place individuals in permanent housing.
Thank you. This will be a resolution of the council. Mr. Goff, do we have a further presentation on this by staff?
Yeah, just real briefly, and Rebecca, our homeless navigator, and Marianne are both on Zoom. Marianne could barely speak. I told her to go home. I think you have them both up here if you have any questions, but this is really exciting, and we've talked about this with council in the past. This is one area that is really time consuming for our homeless navigator is finding the actual housing, right? Which is our goal, is to get our homeless individuals into some type of housing. And this is a free service that is out there. We just need to approve this MOU with them, and it will decrease the amount of time that Rebecca needs to spend finding locations. These locations will be pre-approved, and so we're excited about this. We won't have to hire a housing navigator at this time. If we approve this MOU and work with this company, so very excited about this.
Thank you. Before I go to questions from council, I'll open this up to the public to see if anyone would like to speak on this item. I don't have anyone signed up to speak on this, but if you have not signed up and are here and would like to, you may do so now. And I'll check and see if we have anyone on our Zoom format who would like to speak on this item.
We do not, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, and I don't see anyone stepping forward. So we will close our public's right to speak on this item, and I will open it up to questions from council. Bless you. Councilor Knotzler-Beck.
Patrick, could you just explain a little bit more about how many actual units this has the potential to connect some of our folks in our community who are experiencing homelessness?
Yeah.
What's the potential that's out
Sure.
there with this?
Yeah, and I'm not sure if we know that, but I think Allie's pulling up Rebecca or Mary Ann to see if they can help answer that question. There they are. Rebecca, you have an answer for that?
I do. I don't have a exact answer. I think that this program has shown in Seattle that they've made great partnerships with a number of properties, and they're continuing to reach out here in the Denver metro. And so as long as they're able to work with these properties And from my understanding, they've kind of, the selling point to the property managers is that they have one contact person if something goes wrong with the tenant, so they don't have to reach out to multiple people. They reach out to Housing Connector, and then they reach out to the referring party, which in this case would be me, the the homeless navigator. And so as many property owners or landlords would like to get connected with this site.
Yeah, thanks, Rebecca, because just in our packet, it had said, 42,000 units, and I was like, that sounds great. But I was just wondering what we were thinking that might look like for Wheat Ridge, but that's great context to understand how the program works. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Holteen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Given that we are, our housing navigator or our homeless navigator is also serving Edgewater, does this agreement also serve Edgewater, or is there a jurisdictional boundary here? How does that work since we're approving this
question.
here?
Did you get that, Rebecca?
Yes. I think I would need to talk to staff a little bit more about this, but we have set it up where we go as the City of Wheat Ridge Homeless Navigation Program, and I've kind of done that kind of with the releases of information that I've done, and it includes all three of the programs that I serve. So I would anticipate that it would serve both of the programs.
Okay, do we need to double check or at least reach out to our partner cities for them to also enter into this agreement?
We'll check on that, Councilmember. I believe Rebecca's correct, though, because the Housing Navigation Program is under the City of Wheat Ridge employee and budget, but we'll double check it. If we have to make an amendment, maybe we can make it administratively, or we'll bring it back.
Okay, great. Well, I'm really excited to see this come forward. The more we can serve, the better. So thank you.
Ms. Hutchinson.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Well, number one, we're not Seattle. And if they're interested in working in the Denver area, are they working in Denver? I mean, we're the Denver area, but Denver has a huge problem with this. And I am wondering how this would affect neighborhoods. So you have a house to where, and this is all confidential and nobody's going to know anything and things like that. How does this affect a neighborhood where people don't know who's moving in or how long they're going to stay? I think of people who have a vested interest in a neighborhood, paid money and they have their homes there, to where what exactly goes on? It seems pretty secret.
I'll answer your question first, or I'll attempt to. The first part is that the program launches in November. So in the Denver metro area, the program has not quite launched in Denver yet, which is why we're trying to get ahead of it so that we can be there right at the very beginning. The second part is that as part of the agreements, there's agreements between housing connectors and then the property owners. And as part of that, the property owners do set the requirements on their end in terms of credit score, income requirements, criminal history. And so each property owner has the ability to determine what that boundary looks like. And that's also helpful for Rebecca because that is clear and transparent for her on her end. But then it also helps to, for the landlord, property owner to be in charge of the type of tenant or the statistics of the tenant that may be occupying that spot.
Well, when I'm looking at this, it states the property partner can reduce the following screening criteria for potential program residents: credit score, income restriction, eviction history, criminal history. So that's kind of, I don't know. That's
It's not
just
unlike what a
interesting to
landlord.
me.
sorry, it's not unlike what a current landlord would do if they would rent out their property on Craigslist or Zillow currently. So it doesn't necessarily change the course of action to what currently happens when somebody rents out their property.
I don't know about that. I mean, the criminal history part is pretty important. And, you know, credit score and all that, that's an eviction, but criminal history is important to me. So,
It is, but as I think Ms. Schilling mentioned, we don't know what other tenants are doing across the city. It's not a city requirement that a criminal history check is taken for housing somebody. So.
I think some landlords do that.
Oh, no, some do. I'm not
Yeah.
saying they don't. I'm sure they do. When I had a rental, I did. But there's no guarantee that all landlords are doing those checks. We just don't know. And it's not a requirement of the city for them to do that. So this would be very similar.
And this also would be a homeless person that wouldn't be doing drugs. It doesn't mention, you know, so much about that, which we have a high incidence of. I am just very concerned. It seems pretty casual that, you know, you just move people into an established neighborhood. I mean, I thought Jefferson County was going to have a couple places for homeless people, you know, but not start having it where people can just move into neighborhoods.
Is that a question? I don't know. If you want an answer, I don't have an answer to that.
I just, you know, I mean, it sounds good, but I'm also realistic. And I also would like, I want to preserve the neighborhoods that we have here in Wheat Ridge. So,
I guess the point I was trying to make earlier, we have no control over who's coming into neighborhoods anywhere. The only thing the city controls is zoning. So I don't know who's moving in next to me. You won't know who's moving in through this program. It's not going to be any different.
Thank you. I have Mr. Urban, Ms. Hoppy, and then Ms. Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I see that the RAFTA is mentioned in there as far as the application process for new residents. Is that generally the funding source for this particular lease situation where we're looking for the Housing Authority to participate in the Housing Choice Voucher Program? Is that what we're looking at?
I believe it'll be multiple different ways that people could get housed. So if a person does have a housing voucher, such as a permanent supportive or rapid rehousing, they would have to do the RAFTA or a Section 8 or the recovery vouchers that we're partnering with JCMH. But if it were someone who were self-pay, they wouldn't necessarily have to get a RAFTA. They would just have to meet those requirements that the landlord has already preset, and just making sure that they're able to self-pay throughout their lease.
Okay, and then how does the VI SPDAT attach to this at all, or what's the prioritization of the individuals in this process, or is this set above that?
The VI SPDAT, so when I do a VI SPDAT with a client, it puts them into one home or coordinated entry. And if they get matched with a voucher, like a permanent supportive or rapid rehousing, we could use this program to voucher them. Some agencies own their own housing. For example, Urban Peak owns their own housing that they put PSH vouchers in. But then other agencies like Family Tree, they are just looking in the community to house people that get matched through one home through the VI SPDAT. And so it would be used for anyone who meets the criteria. So we could use it for anyone who is matched with a housing voucher through one home or coordinated entry, or a Section 8 voucher, or anyone who is self-pay.
So how do we prioritize the applicants or the list of potential leasees?
I don't know that we'll have a select prioritization. And I don't know if this is, for example, if someone has has a lot of things on their background, we might try to reserve a landlord who's a little bit more lenient for that individual rather than anyone who may not have things on their background. But I don't know that we would be able to say that it's a direct prioritization between housing vouchers and people who self-pay.
Okay. And just to be clear, this isn't necessarily a homeless sheltering program. This is a long-term supportive or subsidized housing program, correct?
I'm sorry, Rebecca, go ahead.
This platform, the Housing Connector, it's more of a Zillow platform. So once the person already has a housing voucher or they already have, they have enough funds for self-pay, then we would use this to find them housing. But it's so they can partner with any landlord or any property in the area. For example, any of the properties in Lakewood, Wheat Ridge, anywhere in Denver Metro. So it would just be, they would be signing on a regular lease like they would be without using this. It just kind of takes out the time that it takes to call a landlord, see how much it costs, what their criteria is and things like that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Hoppy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. City Manager Goff, I just wanted to clarify, if I am a property owner and I want to rent to someone who has a housing voucher or Section 8, there are no requirements that I have to disclose that or that I have a list of requirements to be able to do that from our city, correct?
Not from our city.
Thank you.
I don't know if Rebecca and maybe Councilmember Urban even, he's got more experience with the Housing Authority than I do, but not from the city. But the Housing Authority, I think, to get a voucher, I think there might be certain requirements and background checks. I don't know.
But we have no requirements that the landlord.
No.
If a landlord's going to rent their property, we don't require that they check backgrounds or credit or anything like that.
That's correct. We do not.
So then short-term rentals would basically be the only type of rental property that we are currently have regulations around.
Correct.
Thank you.
Councilor Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to follow up on what Councilor Hoppy was just asking. Specifically, that it's also something that we're kind of dancing around, which is the Fair Housing Act, and that people with drug addiction are actually considered disabled. So it isn't something that one can discriminate on in a housing rental situation. So thank you.
Thank you. Additional discussion on this item? Before I go to a motion? Okay. Councilor Stites, a motion is in order.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve a memorandum of understanding and data sharing agreement between the City of Wheat Ridge, Colorado, and Housing Connector.
Second.
We have a second by Councilor Hoppy. Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
Mr. Mayor, the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. That brings us to the end of our regular agenda items. We will now go to City Manager's matters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple quick items. Happy to report that we do have a new assistant to the mayor and city council hired, and she started today, actually. Her name is Stephanie Pomponio. Did I say that correctly? She started today, so you should all meet her tomorrow night if you're at the board and commission dinner. So I'm very excited about that. She comes with a tremendous amount of experience. We're very lucky. She provided high-level executive assistance to Colorado School of Mines and to NREL, and she's a local in the area, Arvada resident, and been here a long time. Her kids went to local schools, and she's very excited to be with us. So excited about that. You may have heard already, I'm sure you have, or seen, Jeffco Public Health put out a new public health order on Friday that was effective yesterday on masks. Masking is now required for all employees and visitors above the age of 2 to any public facility. They did amend that today. The rec center patrons to our rec centers do not need to wear masks, so we reversed that. Our employees will still be wearing masks in the rec center, but patrons do not. And we also had an emergency meeting today with the health department, and they did approve unanimously a new public health order to require mandatory testing for unvaccinated public employees. and that will be effective November 1st. So we'll be working very diligently with our staff to get out a process to handle that. Mayor, were you on that call? I don't know if I left anything else off that you can report on that if you want.
It was a long call, but I think that was well summarized.
So that, again, that goes in effect November 1st. So there's a lot of caveats, and we're kind of waiting for the guidance to figure out some of the definitions and what they actually mean. So as I mentioned, the groundbreaking is tomorrow for our Wadsworth project. Excited about that. And our appreciation event for all of our wonderful board and commission members is tomorrow evening. So hopefully you can make that and thank them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. City Attorney's Matters. Mr. Dahl couldn't make it in person tonight. I believe he may be
on Zoom.
On
Mr.
Zoom.
Dahl, you have anything?
I do not see him
Oh, okay. Maybe he.
Yes, City Clerk, he's the caller.
All right, we'll put out one more call from Mr. Dahl. Do you have anything tonight for us, Mr. Dahl? Okay, he may be on mute. We will now go to elected officials matters, and I'll start with our clerk, Mr.
I want to
Kirkpatrick.
remind everyone that mail ballots have gone out from the county clerk and recorder's office. There will be a flood of them landing tomorrow in mailboxes across the city, because of course today was a national holiday. The last day to get your ballot in is 7 p.m. Tuesday, November 2nd. There are 3 drop boxes in the city, one at Anderson Park, one at the rec center, and one here. You can also literally register to vote and cast a ballot up till 7 p.m. on election night if you're in line in time to do that. So when your ballot comes, please cast it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. We have our treasurer here. Mr. Miller, do you have anything for us tonight? Okay, thank you so much. We will go to our counselors and start with Counselor Mosler-Beck.
Thanks, Mayor. I wanted to thank the students that came and joined us tonight, and also the parents. It's really important that we keep our students safe as they're walking to school, when they're leaving school, on the weekends. I ask drivers to please pay attention, because there are little humans, big humans, dogs, people on our streets, and I feel like since we've come back from COVID, we're getting back into that space where we're rushing around and we're not paying attention to everything that's going on and others in our community. So thanks to those students, and thanks to my neighbor Mandy, who came as well. They were very excited to get to shake your hand, Mayor. So thanks.
Thank you. Counselor Hutchinson.
Thank you, Mayor. Unfortunately, I won't be able to go to the Wadsworth groundbreaking tomorrow because I'm getting my booster shot.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Dozeman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I read prior to our meeting starting that the pedestrian in the 30th and Youngfield accident today did not make it. So my heart goes out to his family and his friends. And I think it just kind of goes to reiterate that we really need safe routes to school, safe sidewalks in our community, and please watch what you're doing while you're driving. With that said, I am excited about the Wadsworth program kicking off tomorrow. I also won't be able to make it, but excited for that for our community, District 2 especially. And with that, nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Urban.
Nothing this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Holteen.
Thank you. I'll just state again, as it's been said several times tonight, the tragedy of 2 pedestrian crashes in one day is heavy. I remember there was a November 2017, where in the course of 1 week, we had 2 bicycle crashes and 1 pedestrian crash, and 2 of those were fatal. And it's just a heavy reminder that when we are in our cars, the onus is on us as drivers to be mindful of more vulnerable road users, and that is people walking on their bike, in wheelchairs, connecting with transit. Mark De La Torre from the ADATS tonight sent me a text and asked me to mention that whether you drove here, biked, or took transit, you were still pedestrian at some point on your commute. So pedestrian safety does affect all of us. So I just want us all to take very seriously that pedestrian safety is every day of every week of every month of every year. On a more lighthearted note, I am incredibly excited, as is Council Member Weaver, for this Saturday's Harvest Festival. We are going to be celebrating a great year of growing great things in our city. It will be Saturday from 1 to 4 p.m. at Anderson Park. And there's going to be a band, a bluegrass band with a great name that I can't remember right now, so you're going to have to come to find out what the name of the band is. But we will have arts and crafts, seed swaps, all sorts of great things relating to why Wheat Ridge is a great place to grow stuff. Councilmember Weaver and I are going to MC it, so yeah, it's going to, if that'll either compel you to come or maybe scare you away a little bit, but, and Mayor Starker will also be there to say a few things and present awards. So we hope to see everybody there. It's going to be a lot of fun. Anderson Park, Saturday from 1 to 4, Harvest Festival 2021.
Thank you. Councilor Weaver.
I just want to echo Councilor Hulteen's words on the Harvest Festival. And I want to apologize for the little dance I did in the middle of the budget. It was so exciting. There was a very large spider back here. And yeah, we're still unclear on the rest of where they came from. So apologize, everybody. That's what was going on.
Well, I'm not too concerned about where it came from. Where did it go? Okay. Okay, good. We've taken care of it. So thank you so much. Councilor Stites.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I won't be able to make the boards and commissions dinner tomorrow, so I want to say thank you to all of our boards and commissions members who make the city run. So thank you to all of you. And as usual, if you can find it and buy on Wheat Ridge. The tax money is obviously paying off. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Hoppe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I have not put my feet down since Councilwoman Weaver told me that there is spiders there. I just want to take a moment. Today is Indigenous People Day, and I'd just like to take a moment to recognize that. There's a really great article on npr.org that has some really great, pieces of history as far as Indigenous People Day and Columbus Day. But what I learned in that article was interesting, but I guess it just didn't dawn on me before, but this year is the first time that a president has officially recognized Indigenous People Day. So anyways, just please take a moment to consider the contributions both in the past and in the present that the Indigenous people have given us in our communities.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, Mr. Urban.
Thank you. I just wanted to wish Mr. Walt Pettit a happy 80th birthday. His birthday's coming up on Thursday, and he's done a great service to the city, and we'll always be in his debt. So happy birthday, Walt.
Very good. Happy birthday, Walt. On a sadder note tonight, I pause tonight to recognize longtime Wheat Ridge resident and business owner Dolores Lombardi, who passed away, unfortunately, on September 30th. Dee, as she was known to many, owned and operated Beauty Incorporated Hair Salon for 57 years, most of those years right here in Wheat Ridge. She was a savvy business owner, had a strong work ethic, and a loyal base of satisfied customers. As a single mom, she worked hard to provide a good life for her children, Paulette Longo Tonilis and Philip Longo, and was a strong supporter of businesses, sports teams, and organizations throughout the city. We send our condolences to the family. A rosary service and funeral mass will be held later this week at St. Peter and Paul Catholic Church. I want to thank the residents who were able to make coffee with the mayor last Saturday morning. We had some great discussion, and it's a good opportunity to find out some of what's going on in Wheat Ridge, and also to let your voice heard in our deliberations, because I'm sure the council joins me in expressing our desire to hear from our citizens and know their wishes as we do our deliberations. We've heard a lot about traffic safety and our pedestrians. We have some great kids and great families that live in our city, please drive carefully, and let's make sure that we have a great, safe city to go home to every night. With that, no more business to come before the council. We stand adjourned.